Let me first join the Secretary of State in congratulating the RAF on its anniversary and congratulating Prince Harry and Meghan Markle on their engagement. That's one Anglo-American couple we on this side will be delighted to see holding hands. I'm sure that Prince Harry, the patron of Rugby Football League, will be joining all of us in supporting the England team in the World Cup final on Saturday. And I, for one, will of course be waving my St George's flag. Before I get on with my questions, Mr. Speaker, can I ask the First Secretary a simple point of principle? Is he happy to be held to the same standards in government that he required of others whilst he was in opposition?
The Secretary.
Yes, I am. I think all ministers should respect and obey the ministerial code, and I absolutely think that that's a very important part of confidence in public life.
Mr. Speaker, the First Secretary looked rather perturbed at my line of questioning, but he doesn't need to worry. I really am not going there. I merely wondered if he remembered the question he asked at Prime Minister's Questions almost 17 years ago, when John Prescott stood in for Tony Blair, and whether he could answer the same question today. So what's the question? The question was this: what percentage of new nurses recruited in the past 12 months are now working full-time?
Secretary.
I can't remember.
What was the answer there?
I can't remember asking the question then, and I'd love to know what the then Deputy Prime Minister answered then. What I'm happy to assure the Right Honourable Lady is that we have more nurses, more midwives, more doctors working in the health service now.
But since he failed to answer my original question, I'll do it for him. According to the government's latest figures, more than 40% of newly recruited nurses are leaving full-time employment within their first year. His local A&E, according to the board's most recent minutes, and I quote, have severe staff shortages in medical and nursing care, means patient safety is being put at risk, and the only option to tackle those shortages is to cancel outpatient clinics. And it gets worse. And it gets worse. At a public meeting tomorrow, there is going to be a public meeting tomorrow to consider closing his local A&E for good. In other words, all the things that the First Secretary has been denying. What are you doing to our NHS? It is happening on your own doorstep. Isn't it about time that the First Secretary got a grip?
The Right Honourable Lady's grasp of the facts is pretty shaky. The meeting tomorrow in my constituency is about the strategic transformation plan. I am happy to assure her that I am entirely in favour of option one of that strategic transformation plan, which suggests not just leaving A&E services in the hospital in my constituency, but actually expanding specialist services there. I would strongly suggest she doesn't try to think she knows more about what's going on in my constituency than I do.
What does it say about the government's priorities that last week's budget could only find £350 million to help the cash-strapped stretched to the limit NHS cope with the winter fuel crisis? Only £350 million to cope with the winter crisis, and was able to find 11 times that amount to spend on a no-deal Brexit. Yeah. Isn't that the very definition of a government fiddling away whilst the rest of the country burns?
Yeah. And when she says at the end that the government is wasting £3 billion on preparing for Brexit, we now know that the Labour Party doesn't think it's worth preparing for Brexit. They do though think it's worth preparing for a run on the pound. That's all you need to know about Labour.